This is a test of the emergency broadcast system.
In 5, check for sound. 4,
It's showtime.
3,
Let's
2,
go.
1.
You're listening to the Pro Audio Suite, a program for audio and voiceover professionals.
Hey everybody, we are here in Atlanta. This is a rare occasion where some of us that work remotely from each other, we don't get to see each other hardly ever, get to be together in the same place. So I'm sitting here, my name's George Whittam, because you're listening. Some people, this is a weird one. It's a podcast and all you folks are listening to us, but we're also recording and live streaming at VO Atlanta down at the Concourse Renaissance. Is that the name of this place? Really cool hotel. It's like, they call it the Concourse because we're practically on the airport. I mean,
we are. You look out the window, there's a plane right
it is
there.
a trip.
I hope they stop soon enough on the runway.
Is that your private aircraft, Robert?
Yes, it is my plane.
Yeah.
Robert has valet airplane parking. That's how profitable Source Elements is.
Yeah, well,
We all have a laugh.
Right.
But sitting on my left here, Andrew, because you've not got to really meet him yet, is Sean Caldwell.
Howdy.
Hi, Sean.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How is Atlanta for you?
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's great. Nice and sunny. I'm actually up from Florida, so it's slightly colder than I'm used to, but it's quite nice.
Well, there's no alligators in Atlanta, as far as I'm aware.
No, I did not bring any up with me. So,
And by the way, this is not cold.
right. No, I know. You're right.
Says the man from Chicago.
Yeah, I know people in Chicago and Michigan and North Dakota are laughing at what I just said.
So what are you doing there, Sean?
I came here to do a couple sessions and talk about rates in the industry and also talk about some technical things and do an X session later today on people on a general overview, how to have a successful long-term career in the voiceover industry. Yeah, and then see everybody hang out.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting topic because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are my vintage who do have concerns about the longevity of the industry, the way it looks at the moment, and how it's going to play out.
I would agree. We've had a lot of discussions here about new folks entering the field, as well as some different negative forces that have been in the industry for a while that hopefully are getting corrected over time, and able to have a nice rate structure, have longevity for people, and get it to be an ongoing entity for many, many decades and the rest of our career and then beyond.
I know the entity you're probably referring to, and do you see that rate structure being good for all?
I see a lot of people realizing that there are some unhealthy practices that have been out there, might still be continuing out there, and to at least have knowledge is the first step of that. To people can choose where they want to spend their pay-to-play dollars if they want to be in that ball game. And I think through choosing those, hopefully the healthier organizations with healthier attitudes win.
Well, talking of pay-to-play, actually, I wasn't going to mention this, but I don't know whether George or Robert mentioned that I'm actually the owner of and founder of Real Time Casting. Are you aware of that website?
Yes, I've heard of real-time casting. Mm-hmm.
Well, we've decided we're just going to make it a free platform for everybody. There's going to be no membership fees, no fees for producers, nothing. It's going to be completely free.
So play only.
Yeah, no pay at all, just play.
Absolutely. It's all play, no pay. Well, hopefully you do get paid, but you know what I mean.
Right, yes.
Yes.
How do we call it, a stay and play?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's great. That is fantastic. So what was the impetus to do that, to go free?
Because we saw what was happening. I think everyone's aware of what's happened over the last 6 to 12 months. And there is no point going in the ring with Mike Tyson if you're the dweeby computer tech. So you've got to come up with a new strategy. And this was it. And I just, we'd never set up real-time casting to make our fortune and sit around on yachts. Far from it. So it was all about, because the people involved with real-time casting were people in the business, and we were trying to make sure that we had a healthy industry for us to work in as well. And so we kind of looked at the numbers and thought, okay, let's just run it for free and see what we can do.
At least be disruptive and try to change the industry in the direction you'd like to see it be.
Absolutely, and we're going to screen obviously the people that go on, but that was the main impetus for it. It's just to just throw a spanner in the works and hopefully it will all come out shining nicely at the end, but we'll see.
We'll see. Andrew, what have you been curious about that we've experienced here at VO Atlanta? I mean,
well, some of the forums where you get different panels talking about different things, they're always quite interesting. I saw a couple streamed from 2 years back at VO Atlanta, and I found them fascinating. So what have been the main topics that have been on the panels?
I don't think we have enough time.
Yeah, there's
okay.
a lot of, like, it seems like every room in this hotel has got someone in there giving instruction. And
At any one time, I think there are 10 to 15 things going on. And like, as an attendee, the worst part of this conference is it's too much content. Yeah. It's just very difficult to choose. There's a lot of sessions that are included, and then there's X sessions that are additional pay, that are long sessions with the coach or whatever, 3-hour sessions. And there's so much going on. I mean, it's just mind blowing. But we talked the big discussions about rates and the pay to plays has dominated a lot of conversation. There's a lot about marketing and business, which I think every voice actor needs to be looking at that stuff heavily. Yep. There's the panel. I think I've been sequestered away at the end of the hallway, so I haven't gotten to see
George
much.
and stuck him in a studio and closed the door.
But the one that was closest to me, that was clearly well attended, was about LinkedIn, and it was overflowing literally with people. They were sitting on floors, and obviously that was a topic that was really desirable.
Yeah, Tracy did a great job.
Tracy Lindley, Tracy Lindley on LinkedIn. Robert's been connecting people with what Source Elements does. We have a VizDin set up here with a Telos ready to make and take ISDN calls in the studio. We did
live sessions.
We've done actual real sessions, not just auditions, but we had Maxine Dunn do a 30-second commercial spot that turned into an hour and 10-minute long session. Live patch to, the studio is called Rocky Mountain Recorders. It's a great studio. In fact, if Maxine was in Denver or back in West, she would have been there in person, but we were able to book her remotely through them, and we made it happen.
No gig go unbooked.
No. That's right. You know the rule, Andrew. When you want to book more work, you book a trip.
Leave. Yeah.
Exactly, and that was going to lead me into the next question I had for you, because I'm sure there's been a lot of discussion about working remotely from hotel rooms, and in fact, probably most of the people there are doing exactly that. So, what's the main gear they're using? What's the most popular setup for a hotel room?
You brought your rig with you.
I did. I didn't know for the podcast setup if we'd need some gear, so I brought my Sennheiser 416, which is one of the mics I use in the studio, so I brought it to travel. When I was at another conference a while ago, somebody had done a session on recording from the road, and I actually came away with a really cool piece of gear that I didn't know existed. And it's a little gooseneck that you can clip to a table, you can clip to the underside of the luggage rack, and then you can mount your mic or your shock mount or whatever to it. And so I used to try to bring the heavy bass and find one that was 8 or 10 inches tall, but it caused me to lean in all the time and get if I'm doing a long session, my neck hurts. But this gooseneck is great. It fits in the suitcase wonderfully. And so I run a 416 into a Sound Devices USB Pre 2 on the road. Yeah. And I love that piece. It's a beautiful preamp, and probably the thing that I like most about it is that it has a soft limiter that's switchable. And because it's switchable, I don't need to worry about clipping, about distorting anything. I can run the level low if I want, or if I'm doing a project for a promo that they actually desire a little bit of compression on, I run it a little higher and go into the compressor or the soft limiter, and it sounds great. It's about a $900 US piece of equipment.
It's got really good pre's on it.
It does. The preamps are fantastic, and I use it in my main studio with the line-in, and it's a great piece of gear.
Have you heard of the Sound Devices company, Andrew?
Yes, I have. Yeah, is that the manufacturer of this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Sound Devices USB Pre 2, I believe. Everything they make, except there's some new gear that came out recently that might be different, but pretty much everything's made U.S. It's rock solid.
I think it's made up in Wisconsin.
Mill grade, thing. So
what do you use to control the sound? Do you use do you just stack up blankets, or do you take something else with you?
I try it many different ways. It depends on the hotel, how the desk is set up. And in this hotel, it's not a long enough or a wide enough desk. So to have the luggage rack there and to have space for my computer, I ended up being kind of, to the side and being awkward. So what I did is I set up right on a desk. And since I didn't have anything really long to do, I pretended I was kind of Superman with an extra long cape, and I took the duvet behind me, up and over me, and had the mic here, but I'm holding the duvet like this, and that blocked out most of the echo of the room. I mean, I had pillows like up here just to absorb some of it, but my normal, use the luggage rack or use the ironing table, I couldn't get any of that to work. You guys may have some other, neat
no
ideas.
chairs with 4 legs, put the chair up on top of the table and then throw the duvet over it with your mic underneath.
Oh, that may be. I just found the table wasn't quite wide enough to do what I wanted. So like my laptop kept, teeter-tottering, and I just thought this is going to turn into where I pay $1,000 for this session. So I want to do that.
we came up with a somewhat similar scenario. We're in a different hotel. It's quieter over there, but we have an ironing board, which I ended up, for whatever reason, flipping upside down because it's on this cabinet and the legs were wider than the cabinet, so it wouldn't stand on it. So I flipped it upside down.
Yeah.
And it creates a blanket thing to hold the blanket. And I took a corner and tucked it into a light fixture.
Okay.
So it's not hanging down your head. And stacked some pillows next to the wall on my suitcase. I mean, it's hilarious. But Maxine cut some jobs right in her room, for a client using that setup.
That was a phone patch one, right?
That was, did we do? Yes, we did a phone patch from our room, right? Wow. With Skype. She used Skype on her Android tablet.
Doing sessions every day.
She's killing it. Maxine Dunn.
I did a session Friday morning with London using Source Connect.
Cool.
I use Source Connect now for that one, but I also have Source Connect Pro now. Thank you. And it was great. The Wi-Fi in this hotel is surprisingly good.
It is actually pretty good. We're running
done.
ISDN down that Wi-Fi, and the studio that we set up is in the basement practically, and so we had no cell service. I usually bring into these setups. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but this VipriNet box that takes 3 cell signals and basically bonds them into one solid signal.
Makes an Uber cell phone.
Yeah.
It's an amazing box, and it's certainly it's expensive. But if you just want to like knock out the problem, it's like
I'll do it.
It's like a military device.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like give money to all the cell phone companies, and but it works. But there was no signal down there, so we were like VISDN is designed to use 2 internet signals simultaneously. We're like, we can't. We just only have the hotel Wi-Fi, and
But fortunately, the access point.
the access point is right there in the
over our
room,
head.
and the bandwidth. There's like a very consistent 20 megs up and down. And then it was kind of funny because I was monkeying around with it, and there is a fair amount of security on the Wi-Fi, and I was trying to Wi-Fi repeater. The VISDN system needs Ethernet. It doesn't have Wi-Fi built in. I was monkeying around with it, and it wouldn't let itself be repeated.
You struggled with that for a while.
I did. It
That
took
was
me
like-
about half the day. And then what I ended up doing is I just took the Mac, and Mac was receiving Wi-Fi, and I did internet sharing out the Ethernet port of the Mac into the VISDN system. Boom. So it was single internet, and it's
The Mac Mini is the network. What would you call it? The
router.
hub of the router.
It's a router. Literally,
it's
it
the
turns itself
router.
into a router.
It's crazy. It's a great hack. Probably people don't know that it can do that, but it's really useful.
Wow.
It's a Mac.
That's interesting.
Look at that.
No, the reason I ask also, I had an email from Mike Cooper, the English guy who
Yeah.
plays there in the
Yeah,
States.
yeah.
He's at VO Atlanta for all I know. But
He's over here.
He sent me an email because he just bought a Portabooth Pro from Harlan. And he wanted to pick my brain because I use them all the time and I absolutely love it. It took me ages to get it to work properly, but once I did, it's fantastic.
Now that we're like 2/3 or halfway through the show, let's tell everybody who's watching live at VO Atlanta right now what the heck this is. This is a new podcast.
The audio suite.
It's
The Pro Audio Suite.
It's called the Pro Audio Suite, and it's 4 of us that do this show. It's the 4 horsemen of the audio apocalypse.
The audio apocalypse.
I was thinking something more carnival, but I
Galloping
do
down.
like the horses of the apocalypse. I think that sums it up perfectly.
Andrew, you introduce who's on the Australian side.
Okay,
You're missing one.
On
so
the
you
Australian
introduce
side, we
us.
have
Three-legged horse right now.
Robbo Robertson, who's an ex-radio, still works in radio, but he's now a freelance audio engineer. Robbo and I
he's in
first
Sydney?
worked together at a radio station in Perth back in the early 90s. So that's how I met Robbo, and then we kind of kept in touch over that time. In fact, I think he rented my flat in Sydney for a while, but that was a long time ago. And for me, I'm an ex-radio guy. I stopped working in radio 20 years ago. I had quite a successful radio career and television career, and then decided when I moved to Melbourne that was enough. No one wanted to look at my face anymore, and I was fed up with going into radio stations. So it was a full-time voiceover career for me. So that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. That's my background. Over to you, Batman.
You were doing a podcast before this podcast.
We did a podcast called the VO Radio Show, which was basically Robbo and I with guests. And the reason we all ended up together was because we did a Christmas special last year with Robert and yourself. And we liked it so much, we bought the company.
Yeah, we decided to spin it off and kind of change the brand. And then myself, I'm George Whittam, known on the web as George the Tech. I'm a studio designer and technician and just a helper of voice actors.
Problem solver.
Problem solver. I like solving problems. And that's what I do. And then Robert is of Source Elements. What's your title at Source Elements? It's an interesting title.
Yeah, well, officially product owner. So see, I sort of think I know what everyone wants, and I express that to my partner in crime, Rebecca, and she is an amazing mind and computer genius, and she sees to it that everything gets actually created, and I don't know how she does it exactly.
In a certain
code
timeline.
wizardry, right.
She'll say,
And
I
on
can't
budget.
do that yet.
Exactly. So, we make solutions for basically getting your job done remotely in real time, connecting with studios and over literally any means necessary. ISDN, affordable internet solutions, very purpose-built, dedicated software for doing everything from, I always say, mattress commercials up to ADR for the biggest movies out there.
It's interesting how there's a connection between the US and the Antipodes because Robert, your partner Rebecca, is a Kiwi.
Yes, she is. That's right.
Always interesting when you speak to her. I was actually quite surprised. The first time I spoke to her was years ago when I first got Source Connect. And I was expecting
she's
an
wonderful.
American accent and got Rebecca. So that was kind of interesting.
Right. And if you'd like to hear her, just call up the Source Elements phone system, and there she is.
Oh, she did the IVR
Thanks for calling Source Elements.
Yes, she does. She does, yeah.
Yep.
If you ever want them redone, by the way, Robert, just give me a hoy.
You couldn't do that to Rebecca.
Yeah,
That was-
I don't know. Rebecca likes to be, behind the scenes and stuff, so she's not really the glory,
Yeah, isn't it for the glory? Well, I want to tell you, Andrew, what we used in our studio to pull off like that session we were talking about earlier. We did this session because it was the mic we had on hand. We used a $180 mic. We used an Audio-Technica 875R, which is I call it like a stunt mic.
Yeah.
Because it's not expensive. It sounds pretty darn good. Some people use it as their 416 alternative for traveling because they don't want to lose or break a mic, a $1,000 mic. And it was what we had. And, I did just a wee bit of EQ, barely any, a little notch at 5K or something. I can't remember. But the key ingredient, we used a little bit of downward expander. And we're using the API Vision channel strip on an Apollo Twin, which when I was told I'd be doing this job here
I will
at this
take
place,
that.
I was like, Robert said, you have a Scarlett 2i2, and we also have this Apollo Twin. I'm like, you have to give me the Apollo Twin. I need the processing. And it saved our butts because when Maxine first went in the booth, we had the mics open, no gate, nothing. The doors were closed to the room, but the engineer at the far end said, do you have a door open?
Is that a rumble I hear?
Because they heard voices in the hall. And I was like, because we're trying to fool them. They don't know that we were doing this session from a tent.
Well, we called it a studio.
it was a studio, but we wanted the illusion of being in a pro studio here in Atlanta. So long story short, I got up, pretended to shut the door, sat down, turned on the gate, turned up the range on the gate a little bit, just right. And the guy's like, "Oh, that's better, thanks." And I was like, I fooled the studio into thinking we're in a real studio. That was a real accomplishment.
Well, this is a sad indictment that part of being a voice actor is you have to be an absolute liar. And a good one.
I thought that was a politician.
Yeah, well, there you go. And that could be another sort of panel for VO Atlanta for next year, how to lie your way into a session.
And we could have a politician actually give the session.
Give the session.
Yeah.
Next session.
That's an international thing, isn't it? Lying politicians.
Yeah.
It doesn't change
We're
anywhere.
hoping Maxine's client's not listening. But the bottom line is the job got done. The client was happy. The studio was happy. The client, the producers were happy, and the client was happy.
I mean, it
That's
ultimately
the
was
bottom
a
line.
very usable signal. You're in that the what's vocal booth to go.
It's a vocal booth to go,
It
soundproofer
sounds-
booth, which is very heavy. You would not believe. You're looking at it and thinking, yeah, it's fabric. But it's made out of mass-loaded vinyl.
I went to peek in and it was like, why can't I move this thing? You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
you had to put some effort into moving the door.
You know that feeling when you throw
flap.
on the lead vest when you get your X-rays? That's what the walls feel like. Mass-loaded vinyl took over for lead for lining the studio walls because it's not dangerous.
Right.
It's not.
It doesn't get
it's
in your
not a
water.
carcinogen, and it's cheaper. So that it's almost as heavy as lead per square foot. It's pretty amazing stuff, but it did the trick.
And it knocks down a good number of STCs, actually. It sort of lops off the top by far.
It approximates what you'd probably get from a single wall whisper room. Yeah. You know, pretty darn close, and slightly more portable. I'm gonna say slightly.
Yes.
It probably weighs
It's still like 300 pounds of stuff.
easily 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bags of.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's what we were
your
using.
baggage cost is going to be pretty high, I would think, if you're traveling on a plane.
Yes, it's not something you would travel with really as a talent. It's really for, well, actually, it's for exactly like a scenario like we had here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could even see, like, you know, in the right scenario, you know, you see these setups that there's some sporting event and they have to have like these quick voiceovers that they do for various channels and stuff. And something like that can be set up a lot easier than bringing in massive booths. And it does, you know, if you just give it a room to be within, it's like the two in combination are pretty darn effective.
And because it's not made of wood, there's nothing to resonate.
Right.
Yeah.
It actually sounds better inside, I think, than something that's a hardwood
That's wood.
walled booth.
Yeah, because it
It's
allows
that boxy sound.
never gets boxy. It really is quite amazing. Sean, what are you up to lately? Like what are you gigging on?
Yeah.
these days?
Still doing a lot of promo work. I still do a lot of like Fox Sports affiliates, different places, and some cable nets. A fair amount of TV affiliates around the U.S. I have there's a political show that runs throughout Europe that I'm the show announcer for, and so they get to write me fun stuff that I do each Friday, and it runs around there. And sometimes I understand the joke, sometimes I don't. I think
Do you have to,
But you tell them nonetheless.
goose-step your way in if it's a European political show?
You know, I just said, and maybe Andrew, maybe you'll understand this. I just talked about a Nancy snowman on Friday, and the word Noncey. Are you familiar with the word Nancy?
No.
I said, what are we talking about? I say, it mentions like a pedophile, and okay,
Yeah,
so
nonce, yeah.
Now I know the context of the joke.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's always fun. You know, I love doing international work just because I love getting to know people, different places, and it's also fun. You know,
That's interesting that because I'm pretty sure you don't have a European accent. Of
No.
any type.
They wanted the American show announcer. They wanted it to be like, back in the Johnny Carson days or something where it would be that kind of a feel. Yeah. So, and I'd met some of the guys that are on the show probably 20 years ago. I voiced some stations in London and Liverpool, and they'd come from that. So they're like, oh, we know an American guy, so yay. So that one's nice. And then a number of TV affiliates, places, a lot of radio imaging, and commercials, e-learning. I have a pretty full
Do it
day.
all.
Yeah. I'm doing it all, so it's been good.
Well, it's interesting. The difference between a Nazi and a Noncy is Hitler was a Nazi, and I think Goebbels was a Noncy from memory. He certainly liked his pink uniform. But
Both
so
jerks.
who's doing the show that you're working on, Sean? Do you know who the hosts are?
Yeah. It's Sam Delaney's News Thing is the name of the show. So the show is called News Thing. The host is Sam Delaney, and they'll usually have 4 or 5 different guests on, and they'll make fun of Tories or they'll make fun of different parties over
Wigs.
there. No, not the Tories and wigs. but I get to talk about the Queen occasionally, and they'll talk about U.S. politics as well. And it's interesting because cable or satellite over there, and maybe we're as vulgar as they can be over there. But I get to say some colorful words from time to time, which that's different for me because I in no other projects do I ever get to say some of those words. So
Exactly.
yeah, I record that one when the kids are not around.
Yeah, there's no safety catch when it comes to British TV when it with the language warning.
kids are
That's for
gonna
sure.
find
It's
it.
just free for all. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about Australia? Is television in the same realm of how do you guys feel about swearing, nudity? How's TV in Australia?
There's certainly some colourful language. I don't think, actually, it's not that different really to the UK now. I mean, the first time I heard someone drop the F-bomb on television, on free-to-air television, was in the UK, and it was back in the mid-'80s. And I was like, whoa, I never heard that before.
Well, they'll lose their FCC
it took a while to
license
catch
in
on
the UK
elsewhere,
for that
but,
one.
the F-bomb seems to get used after a certain time period, sort of 8:30 onwards. It's, not unusual.
Just for comparison, how different the U.S. is, I was watching FX, the network, and they were showing the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. This is a racy
Little bit
movie.
racy movie, yeah.
They pretty much do anything you can get away with without getting an NC-17 rating. It's amazing what they could show on FX.
Wow.
They blocked out nudity because it's United States. But they were able to say
don't people have genitals in the United States?
It's hilarious. And then
We don't.
But
excellent.
they allowed them to show things I won't even describe to you right now, with drugs and everything else. That's fine. And violence, no problem.
Yeah.
But
Don't say a bad word.
It is so weird. The U.S. is so strange that way. One thing last, because we geek out, we know what you brought to record here, but what do you record with at home?
Yeah.
What's your home studio setup?
So I've moved in the last year and a half or 2 years. I've moved from using a booth that had lots of bass traps all throughout it to an open room. And in the open room, I have a sound desk from Argosy, and it's one of them that will go up and down. I love it. I use it primarily as a standing desk, so I'll stand for most of things. But then I have 2 mics. I have a Neumann U87 on one side and a 416 on the other. I've kind of been going back and forth between the two just to see what clients like. My general thought process has been for promos, I'd use the 416. For commercials that wanted a little more natural sound, to use the U87. And I'm thinking, is that still the right way to do it? Because the Neumann sounded much better in the open room than it did ever in the booth. In the booth, it just picked up many more of the standing waves, didn't sound good. But I run that into a Gold Digger, the Radial Engineering Gold Digger mic switcher.
It's a mic switcher.
It's a great mic
that has
switcher.
its own phantom power.
Yes.
Doesn't click or pop or anything.
And supposedly uncolored, doesn't change the audio at all. So I like to be able to just switch that way. And then I trade out some different preamps depending on what I'm doing, but I'll either use an Avalon 737 or use a Universal Audio 6176.
Oh, yeah, that's the 610 with a 1176.
1176.
Yeah, nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. If it's for some project, I do a fair amount of radio work. If it's, let's say, a rock station that wants something really gritty, I have a distressor that I just unbypass and let it, chomp away a little bit at it. And then I run into the USB pre too.
Oh, yeah, that's the AD.
Yeah, and that's I've run into Adobe Audition. People, are you on the latest version? No, actually, I use version 1.5 in the home studio.
Dude,
No plugins.
It works
No
fine.
VST plugins.
Yeah, don't need plugins. I mean, it does have VSTs on 1.5.
does?
Yeah, it does. But I primarily don't use any. I just use my hardware chain, so it goes in, because I also do a lot of live sessions, and for those, it needs to sound like I'll normally sound. Yeah.
How do you find the open room? Have you treated the open room?
I've used a bunch of panels from GIK Acoustics. They're based here in Atlanta, and I've used a number of 4-foot by 2-foot by 4-inch panels around the room. I think I have 16 of them, and then I have a cloud with 3 of them that are over me. I was surprised how much the cloud, I knew the cloud would help. The cloud made a huge difference. So I was really encouraged by that. The room sounds pretty good. It's not quite as dead as I'd like. I could probably make it really dead, but then I start to not hear myself well if it's super dead. So I'm really pleased with the panels and the way that it works in the open room.
Do you have any diffusion in there?
I don't. Maybe that's what I should work on
That
next.
can help with keeping it live, but not live in a bad way. Mm-hmm. Just kind of scatter
Bookshelves full of books.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I know that we're pretty close to being out of time, Andrew.
Yep.
They have got more programming because this was streamed live. They have more stuff going on in a few minutes, so maybe we should put a cap on it.
Absolutely.
Sean, thank you for joining
We'll put
us.
a cap on right now, and it's looking good. But
and
yes, we
not
should
like a cap,
slam the door on another one because, as you said, you've got to get out of there. And I'm going to go and have some breakfast because it's very early in the morning here.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being able to join us. Sorry that Robbo couldn't do it, but I understand he is a family man.
He wants to remain that way. That's why he's not here.
No doubt. But
But
I guess we'll wrap it up here at VO Atlanta.
Yeah.
We had
lovely.
Andrew Peters.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Sean, for joining us.
You're more than
Thank you,
welcome.
George. Thank you, Robert. And we'll catch you next week.
Goodbye, goodbye. Wipe the tear, baby, from your eye. Though it's hard to part, I know I'll be tickled to death to go. Don't cry, don't sigh. There's a silver lining in the sky. Bonsoir, old thing, cheerio, chin chin, na poo toodaloo, goodbye.